Hello, ESA. I am Tasselfoot, and this is GRIS. GRIS is a games as art platformer narrative adventure game that was released in 2018. We have a long intro cutscene to go through, so we're just going to get started, and then I will continue this conversation with you guys during that cutscene. So we'll count down in time to start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. I almost said honk, but that's the wrong game. So again, this is GRIS, pronounced Grease. The developers is Nomada Studios, published by Devolver Digital. Nomada is a Spanish development studio, so GRIS is pronounced like you would in Spain, Spanish, as opposed to GRI or GRIS. It is GRIS. Yeah, so definitely most common issue that people come across is definitely just pronouncing the name. So anyway, this game is a big tearjerker, a little bit different than GTA San Andreas. So no killing, no death, no text of any kind in this game. We are going to go on a journey of self-reflection, introspection, grief over the death of our mother, which is what this intro cutscene is sort of showing and showcasing to us in beautiful watercolor done by Conrad Bizet. So we can, it's a lot of symbolism. I will do my best to explain that to you guys, but I, am kind of a meathead, so it's taken hundreds of hours of playing to sort of understand what's going on. Maybe you guys are better at that than I am, and you'll just understand right from the start. But basically, the statue represents our mother, and the statue just broke apart, signifying that she's passed away, and we are like falling and, going down into these doldrums, and we're gonna need to sort of just come to terms with the fact that our mother passed away. So the game is gonna be played out in 5 parts, signifying the 5 emotions of grief. Those are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And there are colors that are gonna be associated with each one of those. So denial is going to be white, anger is going to be red, bargaining is going to be green, depression blue, and acceptance yellow. The denial section is very much like the tutorial section of the game. We're going to start off here by just holding right for about another 40 seconds. And so as I said, it's about the introduction section, so it's only about 6 minutes, including the cutscene that already played, in terms of this denial section, but the other 4 sections are going to be about 15 minutes each, and each one is going to be broken into 2 parts, with getting a power-up and new ability in the middle. So we also do technically get a power-up here at the beginning, because right now the only thing we can do is slow walk. If we try to jump at all, we're just going to fall to our knees, which I have done before, and definitely don't want to do. It just completely loses you time. Although we do fall to our knees, that happens automatically and cannot be avoided. After which, we are now going to flare out our dress and gain the ability to run and jump. So we are going to jump throughout the entirety of the run. It is 3% faster than walking on straight ground, faster than that when going up hills. So the game definitely, you do walk slower when going up or down an incline, but your jump speed remains the same while you're in the air. We can also buffer jumps slightly, so ideally we are going to be slightly buffering those jumps and then jumping as soon as we land on the ground. We can also do like some weird floaty jump stuff when we're on inclines, as I did on that rock, and as we're going to do on staircases. This game really likes staircases. They're prominently featured throughout the game. Again, I'm sure there is some sort of symbolism there, but I am too dumb to know what it is, so I will leave it to you experts to figure that out. Throughout the game, we are going to be collecting stars. They are kind of our progression blockers. By collecting a certain number of stars, it'll create these invisible barriers that we can then pass through. We also want to jump into cutscenes. I did that slightly wrong there, but this cutscene, even if you completely screw it up, you only lose half a second. We're going to do it throughout pretty much every cutscene in the game, and try to get as deep into cutscenes, again, because GRIS's jumping speed is faster, especially it's a lot faster than her movement speed of slow walking in cutscenes. You can save up to 2 seconds by jumping into a cutscene versus walking from the edge of it. There we go. So we've gotten 2 stars. Again, jump into a cutscene. But now we're getting explained the fact that we can't cross this bridge. It's saying, oh, hey, we need a 3rd star. So we have to go and collect that 3rd star, which is above our head right there. And we're just going to move to the left and, like, climb some stairs. So you'll get to see a little bit of, like, fast stair movement. Hopefully fast. There we go. And so we're able to, with our 2 stars, build this bridge and allow us to collect our 3rd star, and then we can then go back and progress to the right. Which is going to lead us to the end of this white denial section of the game. The end of every area of the game, we finish by jumping into the statue of the hand that broke at the very beginning of the intro cutscene. And an interesting fact about that you might not have noticed if you played this game casually is that the statue of the hand gets more and more complete in each subsequent area. There we go. That's the cutscene right there that saves 2 seconds by jumping into it. And right now, it is literally just a hand. As we go through, I will point out, and you'll notice that the hand becomes more and more of a full statue. And again, because we've now completed Denial, the color palette is beginning to change. It's going from being all white to now having a whole bunch of red hues thrown in as well. An interesting aspect of this game is that it is all one large map. So that is why there's a lot of just movement and walking from area A to area B. There's a central hub that we're going to climb these really long stairs to get to. Oops. Not doing a good job of climbing the stairs. But we need to avoid the hole. Can't fall into the little pit of shame there. And each area is going to finish after we complete it by returning to this central hub right here. And then we're going to deposit the stars that we collected up into the sky. Oddly enough, this sequence of events, this cutscene of depositing the stars into the sky, is actually RNG. There is hard-coded randomness in terms of how those stars move upward into the sky. It can be up to about 3/4 of a second of time loss in each one of these cutscenes. And overall, I'd say there's about 6 to 8 seconds of RNG throughout the entirety of this game. But it's hard to notice and hard to pinpoint. A lot of it is like kind of weird game design decisions, like that with the stars. Like no one is ever going to notice that those stars move randomly up into the heavens. But they decided to do that. The Namada did. And there will be another piece of kind of RNG like that later on. So we are now fully into the start of Red, our anger section of the game. It's kind of another cutscene. The beginning and the end of the game are very cutscene intensive, but the middle portion of the game is mostly gameplay. And yeah, if you haven't seen this game before, you may want to get some tissues. You may want to get a Kleenex or a hanky or something. We are on, and you are in for a emotional roller coaster. It's truly amazing how much emotion this game is able to convey. without any text or dialogue whatsoever. So this is, you know, like any sort of indie artsy piece of media, you have to have your title card 10 minutes in, and GRIS, no exception. So that is GRIS's fall animation right there. As I mentioned, there's no damage or death, so when GRIS falls from far enough up, high enough height, she does that little pirouette animation to signify that, you know, she has safely landed. And we're gonna do some sort of very micro optimizations later on to prevent that animation from playing. Just to, you know, save a half a second here or there in a few different places. So this is kind of the beginning of our anger section of the game. This is called the Sandstorm. And for a while, we theorized that you could skip one of these Sandstorm cycles, but we weren't able to figure out how to do it. And then along came our resident community madman, Skylar, and Skylar found a way. So I will hopefully be showing you guys the Sandstorm skip. It is the sort of thing that we can only try once, and if we screw it up, it just loses more time than it would save, and otherwise we would just wind up doing the casual. And that's kind of how most of the tricks in this game are, that if you don't hit it the first try, it's best to just move on. So in order to do the skip, there are a number of parts to it, and they all start right here. Listen for the audio cue. And so when we're going on these slides, we can momentum jump off the end, like that. And that's another thing, little piece of tech for this game that we will do throughout the run, is momentum jump every time we are sliding on one of those little hills and slopes, because it is faster. So far so good. Good momentum jump, good leave from the Sandstorm, but that all is very easy to do. The hard part that we dubbed the Skylar Shimmy is coming up now after we grab this star. I will explain it after I hopefully hit it 3 times. Hey! Alright, so we got the triple shimmy, although my distance isn't great. I'm a little surprised. So basically, if you land on the ground when a sandstorm is active, you will instantly get rolled up and pushed to the left. So in order to do the shimmies, you have to be holding right to be pushing into the sandstorm. I'm not going to get the full skip. I'm going to take the partial. That's the partial skip getting to that second landing. The full skip gets to the top landing. And if you just miss the full skip, you usually like fall all the way back down to the bottom again, so it's not worth it. It's full skip saves 15 seconds, partial skip saves 13, so we lost 2 seconds, but much better to just be safe for the marathon. So basically with that shimmy, we have to hold down right, and then after we hit our jump input, we're able to shift and then hold left, but then we have to move back to holding right again before we land, and do that 3 times in order to get enough distance and get blown far enough left where we can skip this cycle that's coming up right here. Jump. Alright, so there should be no sandstorm. Hey! Alright, so we skipped the cycle. We saved 13 seconds. Normally, when you do that casually, there would be another sandstorm right there that prevents you from leaving the giant rock creature. But we were fast enough and got far enough ahead of the cycles that we could skip it. And that trick basically turned the Sandstorm from being an auto-scroller in like a 4.5 minute auto-scroller to actually like having some cool tricks and tech and being a fun part of the run. So we're gonna get our first real power-up here. Every power-up is triggered by getting the first 2 stars in an area, and then usually there's like 3 or 4 more in the second half of each area. And since this is anger, we are getting an angry power-up. We call it the heavy. Some people might say that it's just thick girl grease. And then this portion is just teaching us how it works. So whereas those first sets of sandstorms were all time-based, this one is distance-based and is not going to end until we reach a certain distance to the right. So we want to take 12.5 steps, and that covers enough distance to then leave the heavy. So we'll actually use that in a few places later on in the game to prevent wind and getting blown back, our heavy grease. But there is a better feature. Angry grease can break rocks. So we do that 3 times, twice here. I went early. Definitely frustrating. This game has a ton of features or areas where you try to go as fast as you can and stuff just doesn't work. So you have to be like controlled speed and understand a lot of places where you have to go slow to go fast, unfortunately. So again, momentum jump. Need to make sure that we do some basic platform. No, dude. Uh-oh. I think I might miss our windmill cycle here, probably. Yep, missed it. So 6 seconds. Those triangle platforms are trolly sometimes. Like, I thought I jumped onto it, but apparently I jumped through it. And it's a pretty tight cycle. Missing one jump usually does lead towards missing one of those windmill cycles. But most of the cycles in this game are either 6 seconds or 8 seconds, so not terrible time loss to miss one. Although because there's no RNG and this game is relatively straightforward and simple, minimal RNG, getting like within 20 to 30 seconds of your sum of best is not too difficult. So that was one of the other pieces of RNG right there. That little rock creature, we call him Lenny. Grease, come on. Lenny is RNG in terms of where he can be. We got left side Lenny, which loses 1 second. Basically, when Lenny gets to either the left or the right side, he has a range of times that he can wait before turning around and going in the other direction. So more often than not, he's left side, but getting him on the right side just saves a second. We're gonna have to stop and wait for that central cycle when we get back. Just how things are. If we have any donations, definitely a good time.
I would quickly like to take the time and remind everybody that you're watching ESA Together. Yeah, ESA Together is a week-long online marathon that features speedrunners and score attackers from all around the world. We invite everybody, be it ESA regulars or first-timers, showcasing their best for you. ESA Together is supporting ESA and our other affiliated events increased cost this year connected with the coronavirus outbreak. And you in the chat can donate or subscribe, and that will help us out tremendously. And as you can see, we have so far raised over $11,000, which is absolutely mind-boggling. And unfortunately, this is the last day of this marathon, so we're slowly coming to a close, but there's still some time left, and we highly appreciate every support we can get. So thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Try to keep donating. So in the transition, I did a little piece of tech that we call an insta-heavy. It's a frame-perfect trick that cancels out the animation of doing the heavy and saves half a second. I'll explain more about how that works in a little bit. This is George. George is Lenny's buddy. George is not RNG, but because I messed up some movement earlier on in this area, George was off cycle. I find it pretty weird that Lenny is RNG, but George is not. I don't know why it was programmed that way. There's a lot of really weird inconsistencies on a micro level in this game. The hitboxes of objects that you can break are different throughout the game. Some of them are very tiny, some of them are very large. Just weird things like that. Some cutscenes you can start moving earlier than other cutscenes. There's a lot of just weird things like that. But play the game long enough and you just start memorizing which ones are which. So we're gonna get our last star over here on this balloon cycle. We have a fast strat to get it to, just need to be quick on our stairs. Stairs everywhere in this game, so... Oh, that was not what I meant to do at all. I clipped that edge instead of moving down to the platform below, so that's unfortunate. So this is the casual way of doing this, using heavy grease. What I meant to do was to land straight onto that platform and jump off of it without ever going into heavy form, but my jump was slightly off, and I clipped the edge and therefore didn't fall and land on it properly. Unfortunate. And so that throws all of these cycles off, but again, they're only 6 seconds at worst, so not too much waiting. So we collected all our stars, we're able to move on to the top part of this section of the game, our Ferris wheel. Something I haven't mentioned, so this is the true any % category for the game. This is a category that not many people run anymore, but I think for marathons it's more interesting. One, it's faster, two, it has an out of bounds clip. The downside to it is that the out of bounds clip only works on the 1.0 version of the game. It was patched out by the development team very early on. That's the reason that no one really runs it, is because of the down patch. But interestingly, there are 2 strategies, small ones, that you cannot do in 1.0 because they were quality of life updates later on in the game to make the game slightly more forgiving. One of them is doing an insta-heavy off the edge of the Ferris wheel right there. So if you accidentally walk off that Ferris wheel, you will be able to still do a heavy and trigger that pressure plate in the current patch of the game. In the 1.0 version, if you walk off that ledge and do the heavy, you will just not trigger it and have to do the whole thing again. So because doing an insta-heavy is a frame-perfect trick on the final frame of the platform, it's not worth attempting it in that situation on this version of the game. So I always am very cautious and careful where I do my heavy and make sure I do it before I walk off the ledge. And then there's a second spot later on that I will mention as well when we get to it. Notice, again, the statue of the hands now have arms, because the statue is getting more and more complete. And this completes our anger section of the game. Game is transitioning to green tones. But again, we have to do some movement to get ourselves back to the central hub so that we can deposit our stars. So yeah, music in this game is really awesome. Shoutouts to Berlinist, who is the orchestral group that performed wrote and performed all of the music for the game. The score, I would call it. We break that pot, but we're not going to use it for like 40 minutes. There's definitely some contention within the GRIS speedrunning community about when you're supposed to break that pot. I'm on Team Green. There are some folks that are on Team Yellow. But it doesn't matter. It just changes around whether you do the 1.5 second heavy now or whether you do it 40 minutes from now. So our stars have been deposited. We are now going to move over the denial section of the game. This bridge is on top of it. So if we were to somehow phase down, we would be in denial again. And we are going to move to the Forest of Bargaining. So something I haven't mentioned at all in terms of just how this game works from like, well, that's not how the game works, but just sort of how the game explains grief. A lot of people are familiar with, that was also an insta-heavy right there. Notice the animation didn't play and we instantly dropped down. So I can explain the insta-heavy. When basically GRIS gets in the correct frame, her heavy gets overlapped with a collision of an object, either a breakable object or the end of a platform that you're going to be heavying down off of, and the game doesn't know how to handle that, so it just instantly does the heavy instead of heavying into the object. And it frame perfect trick, save half a second. So I was saying that a lot of people are familiar with the 5 stages of grief, but that's not really accurate. Calling them stages is a misnomer and implies that you're going from one to the next as a straight line. But that's not really how grief works. Grief kind of is more of a flowing of water, and sometimes you get pushed back upstream a little bit. And so it's more appropriate to refer to them as the 5 emotions of grief. And grief actually does a fantastic job of doing that by continually taking us back through prior areas of the game and meshing everything together. So sort of traveling over the denial section as we move to the bargaining section is one way of doing that. We can see that a lot of the trees in the background are red, kind of signifying that we still have some anger issues that we're working through, that we haven't completely gotten rid of and gotten through our anger. It's just something to pay attention to that you'll see pretty much throughout the entirety of this game. And so that's really just one of the smaller things that this game does so well for its narrative in terms of actually doing an appropriate representation of what grief is like and not playing up the stereotype that there are 5 stages to grief. So this section, until we get our power-ups, is very straightforward, really consistent area of the game. It's kind of why I'm sort of talking about just narrative and grief as opposed to kind of talking about tech or anything in the game. There just isn't too much exciting going on, right? We made some cycles. But here's a little buddy we're meeting for the first time. A little buddy likes apples. Who doesn't like apples? Technically, none of the characters in the game have names, but obviously we named them as a speedrunning community. So you can't see the little guy anymore just because of our bunny hopping we're now traveling fast enough that he gets cut off the screen. There we go. So we call this little guy Macaroni, and you might wonder, Tass, why do you call this guy Macaroni? And I'm here to tell you. If you're familiar with the song Yankee Doodle, you'll know that Yankee Doodle stuck a feather in his cap, and he called it macaroni. And basically, macaroni was like an old-timey way of saying, like, this looks dope, or wicked cool. And so, macaroni, if you notice, has 4 feathers in its head, and I thought that was pretty macaroni, and therefore it got his name. On the downside, macaroni is the single largest cause of RNG in GRIS, and again, that's hard-coded by the developers. There is 2 options that macaroni can do on every sort of action that he takes, whether it's eating an apple or opening one of these doorways for us. And macaroni can either instantly do the action, or macaroni can think about it for 1 second and then do the action. I don't know why macaroni has like a 50-50 programmed 1 second delay sometimes on every action that we can do. But macaroni does have a 1 second delay, about 50-50, on every interaction that they do. So therefore, pretty much on every run, you're losing, 3 seconds or so to macaroni RNG. And there's always times where you're like, I played this split perfectly, why on earth did I just lose time? And then you're like, oh, it was probably macaroni. And you can't really tell. You may have noticed right there, the screen just kind of jumped ahead. That's another little micro tech in GRIS that we call the zip. It's kind of like the insta-heavy, where basically GRIS's neck gets bisected by an object that you can step on, and the game doesn't like it. I mean, you probably wouldn't like it if your neck got cut in half either. So to rectify that situation, the developers just push GRIS in the downward direction of the slope whenever that situation occurs. So in a lot of cases, we intentionally set up zips so that we can get a few little frames of time save. But there are some instances where you can accidentally get bad zips, either zipping in places that you don't want to, or going against the grain and getting zipped backwards slightly. So say goodbye to macaroni. We are now going to get to a little area where we're going to collect our 2 stars and then get our power up. Again, just, some more movement. This is to get us to that central area, and we're going to immediately do a turn back and go under this area to get that first star. Very somber currently. So this little underground cave section is just pure platforming, and it's harder than it looks. And I mean, that's obviously all relative. Like, harder than it looks in this game means, you could lose 3 seconds to bad movement, as opposed to like doing it optimally. I know a lot of other games, they something that's hard is like, oh, this is gonna lose me 20 seconds. Hey, macaroni. So macaroni was holding out on us, had a star, didn't give it to us earlier, really made us work for it, but thank you, macaroni, and we're going to say goodbye to macaroni for real this time. We'll not be seeing macaroni again. But we did get a star for our trouble. So, as I'm saying, like, hard movement in here can lose you 2 or 3 or 4 seconds. It's kind of like that throughout the game. That basically means that GRIS is a really chill speedrun. It's a game that if you're looking for something that you're not going to rage over, something that you can kind of just do and relax while speedrunning, which is probably atypical for a lot of people doing speedruns, then this is definitely a game to get into. We're over here on the left side. It is very red over here. And the trees behave differently, as I'm sure you notice. The trees move and alternate every time we jump. So when I was playing this game and grinding it a little bit more, I pretty much had my entire route memorized, every single button press. I'm more rusty than that currently, but still, this is a section of the game that you really want to have all of your jump presses mapped out ahead of time. So we've gotten our stars, returning to our platform, and we are going to get our second power-up. So you can see these like floaty birds. We are now going to be able to use those floaty birds because we have gotten our glide power-up. Glide, also known as a double jump of sorts. We're still going to try to single jump whenever possible because our double jump is 3% slower than our single jump. It's the same speed as walking on flat ground. So whenever possible, we're going to leave out of our double jump and still continue single jumping. We can't buffer our jumps anymore because then they just turn into double jumps, but that's okay. And activating those red birds, they send us up, and usually straight up, but not always. We can control the direction a little bit. Also, having a double jump allows us to jump cancel off of these, because it does give us an extra jump every time we hit one of those birds. There's one last piece of RNG in this game. It is these circular birds that go around a tree. Most of the time you get a bad pattern, like we did just here, and we have to wait 3 seconds, but every once in a while you get the good RNG, and you can just get them right away without waiting. So I just set up a trick that we're going to do here that we call double fast trees. Basically, by jump canceling and then getting the correct angle off of those top birds, it changed how the starting point of this sequence began, and basically leaves it so that we have enough time to make that platform and basically just do both sets of these tree cycles without waiting. Whereas casually, you're supposed to be waiting on both of those sets of platforms. They are not meant to line up properly. So, and in case you weren't sure how the red birds worked, the game is going to make sure that you understand how they work right here. We also get introduced to pottery. And pottery oftentimes will contain red birds for whatever reason. Don't know why. But we are going to get introduced to our first antagonist of GRIS, the bird. I should say the black bird, since we've already been introduced to the red birds. Oh, I got blown back slightly. Jumps were a little bit off. So yeah, so we have this kind of chase sequence here with the bird. Kind of just like with our sandstorm. Thick GRIS is able to avoid getting blown backwards.
Let me know whenever you have a minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
Alright, we got some cool stuff here. So first of all, I'd like to thank Virt V9 in chat and the Sound Defense for subscribing. Highly appreciated, guys. Also, we have $25 here from K. Adams saying, Thank you, ESA, for a great week of speedruns. It's been a fantastic distraction. I had to donate during this beautiful game. Thanks, Tasselfoot, for running it and sharing all these tricks with us. Love all the critter names. And we also got $25 from Tasselfoot. Wait, that name sounds kind of familiar. Saying, be like turtle, kill the eel. Thanks for
spoilers.
Thanks for all the support, guys.
Yeah, thank you ESA for everything you do. And good timing on ending, because we have a trick right here that we are going to do. I think I got it first try. Yeah! First try bird blow. That is a really hard trick that saves 3 seconds if you pull it off, but loses 7 or 10 seconds every time you fail it, depending upon how you fail. Basically, you stand in a correct position, jump up to trigger the bird's animation, and then jump back into the bird to somehow trigger it a second time, which then allows, when you get to that central platform, to have it have the bird immediately blow you over again, instead of normally, if you do it casually, you have to wait on that central platform for a few seconds. Again, shoutouts to Skylar for finding that really weird trick. So yeah, so the bird, we became friends for a second, but then we found out that the bird does not like bells, and so the bird got angry again, for whatever reason. And the bird decides to take their anger out on us, even though we just want to be friends, you know? But no one can bargain with the eel. That's the problem. So we notice the music is gone, really setting the stage here. Color tones very red, because we're coming into our boss fight right here. There we go. Good bottom of the eel fight. The top of the eel fight here is actually the second place in the game, where we have to do different slower strats on 1.0 than we do on current build. We do have fast strats right here, but that's quality of life that was implemented post-patch, so we just have to do the casual strats on that top half of the bird fight, which went okay. And overall, not a bad bird fight. And that was going to conclude our bargaining section of the game after, once again, a long stair climb. Once again, jump into the cutscene. But on the positive side of things, look at how that statue is nearly complete. So we finished bargaining. Which means it is time for depression. And the game really goes into that. We've got blue color tones. We have rain. The rain also has a gameplay impact. It is going to reveal invisible blocks that weren't previously visible. It also introduces water to us as a movement medium. But we're going to start off with a blind jump here. And I did not get it. I was early. So there's a fast glide out of that tower. But it's very tight window. It's blind. And it loses about 1.5 seconds. I was early on my input there, so when I jumped, I went up against the inside of the tower walls. And if you're late, you fall into the water. And water is very slow. We're going to try to not be in the water as much as possible. It's unavoidable in places, but it is about like 30% the speed as normal movement, so really bad to be in water for longer than you need to be. But right now, if you recognize, this is the first part of bargaining. We're now doing it as a backtrack, where we are in depression, but we're moving through bargaining in order to get back to our central hub and deposit our stars. And then, as mentioned before, as we were going over denial, we are now back in denial. Can't see it because it is underwater. This is the tower that we climbed in denial. But thank you to the red birds, we were able to soar over it. Mostly. So we always want to be in a glide state when we go into water, because then we stay mostly at the surface. If I was not holding my glide as we went into the water, I would fall a lot further into the water, and then I would have to like slow swim back up to the surface, and so it loses a bunch of time. So as we deposit our stars up into the heavens here, I want to take a minute and talk with you guys about something. So I know that life is pretty hard sometimes, especially in these moments of quarantine. You might be going through some issues, you might be having some depression, you might need someone to talk to. And I just want to say that, for one, I love all you guys, and that if you need someone to talk to, I am always available. But otherwise, I want to point out that the National Suicide Prevention Hotline is available 24 hours, and their number is 1-800-273-8255 in the United States. And there's a similar number for whatever country that you guys might be in as well. And, if you're having feelings that you aren't sure what to do and you need to talk to someone, please do. This section of the game is basically one large 8-second time loss or time save. We have a trick here, the heavy dive skip, so you can break that while still staying up. Normally, if you did casually, you would stand in the center and you would do a heavy, and then you would fall straight into that water. And you would lose 5 seconds having to slow swim back to the surface. But if you can break that board and still stand right on the edge. But yeah, so this whole area, it can only save or lose time in 8-second increments because we are traveling down into an ice cavern. And that ice cavern is needed to solve the puzzles at the bottom, and it works off of an 8-second timer. And that timer starts when we hit those 2 water pools at the very beginning of the area. So this entire 4-minute section is all about whether we can save or lose 8 seconds. There is what we call a fastest cycle, and the fastest cycle, basically, you have to play within 1 second of what is humanly possible, all the way down through those 4 minutes, in order to make it. Only 2 people have made that cycle RTA, myself and Skylar, and I've only done it once, so it's really freaking hard. What most runners try to get is the fast cycle, which is the cycle right after that. I've already made too many mistakes here in order to make fastest cycle, so that's definitely not going to happen. But we're going to try to do some fast mushrooms here. Do a momentum jump there, allows us to skip some platforms, and then right up there, also skipping some platforms on these mushrooms. So that's how you do some fast mushroom. And then we're also going to do some fast pulleys. Just like that. So we're almost finished with this section. Oh, I didn't want to do that. So yeah. But that's fine. As I said, we have 8 seconds worth of leeway here, and I've made very few mistakes in this section, so we are going to comfortably make the fast cycle. I mentioned hitboxes are pretty large. Oh, that's too far. But hitboxes are large in this game, in places. That pot right there has a very large hitbox. I was trying to show off, like, massively super large hitbox, but I went a little bit too far, but no worries. So this is our power-up area, our ice cavern. We always start with the left side because of the way the cycles line up. You lose like 4 seconds if you go right side first because of the way these cycles work. GRIS gets a label as being a puzzle game, but it's not really. These 2 ice cavern rooms are probably the most puzzly aspect of the entire game, and they're not exactly difficult puzzles to solve. Yeah, the puzzle on the right side is a little bit harder than the puzzle on the left side, but I still don't think it's particularly difficult, not compared to an actual puzzle game. And so we're also going to make this cycle, get the star in 2 cycles. Whereas playing casually, you probably did not make this in 2 cycles. And we take advantage of some tech in that GRIS is a very forgiving game. And you can actually leave your heavy early and it will still trigger as an ice square. And then we use that to then be able to start moving earlier than you would normally be able to do, which gives us enough time to make that second cycle. We use that in a couple other places in the run later on as well in order to make some cycles. So we have our 3rd power-up now, and all of a sudden the water went from being our enemy to being our friend. GRIS is now a fish, and water is incredibly fast. We are also going the wrong way. Why are we going this way, you might ask? Because we're going to go out of bounds. Hey! Alright, we hit it, first try. Awesome. That's a relatively precise trick. I had to be standing on the correct pixel when I went and got frozen. And then once you're frozen, it's really easy, but you have to be frozen on the correct pixel, where ice grease will then force heavy grease out of bounds. And we're just going to free fall for a while. Okay. So that's the first part of the trick. We're going to free fall now for a while. And we have one more part of the trick. So basically the game hasn't loaded where we're going now because, you know, we didn't get there normally. And if I land my heavy in the wrong place, then the game is going to hard lock, and we have to do this entire sequence of events over again, which is going to lose about 2 minutes. That's why my estimate is really high. So I'm going to be quiet for a second. That might have been late. Oh, okay. It was late, but we still landed on the hand. Okay. So what I did is some runners who do this on this category, they have a visual cue in the clouds, and that determines when they hit their heavy so they can fall and land on the hand. I'm not good at the visual cue, so there is a section where the camera will pan out during the free fall, and that camera is based on horizontal distance that GRIS is at. So it winds up being really consistent that if you're just holding left, and so from the moment it pans out, I look at my live split timer, and I go 11.8 seconds. And after 11.8 seconds on my timer, I do my heavy. And if I do that correctly, I will land in the hand every time. And I was more like 12.1 there, which is why I landed late. And if I had been like 0.2 of a second later, I would have missed the hand completely and we would have hard locked. So I'm glad that didn't happen. And so now, yeah, we have no concerns anymore about missing estimate. But yeah, estimate would be like a minute 20 or 1 hour 25 minutes if it wasn't for this trick. So I give a really big buffer just in case I happen to miss it a couple of times. But whew, so from now on, oh god, it's the bird again. The bird is back. We are into our second boss fight. Only it's not a bird. It is a water snack. So the eel here is going to bite us 6 times, or try to bite us 6 times. 4 times now. Then there's going to be a dark movement piece, and then there's a second part to the fight where it's going to be 2 more times. But otherwise, this is close to an auto-scroller. Do we have any more donations?
Not at the moment, but I would like to quickly remind everybody that the marathon is unfortunately coming to an end soon, but ESA continues year-round. And if you enjoyed the event and have been gifted a sub, please consider converting that gift sub into just a normal tier 1 sub. For that, you can just click on the subscribe button and you get more information. And your subscription will begin as soon as your gift sub expires. So thanks in advance for everybody who's considered doing that.
Can't believe you guys haven't donated anymore. Very disappointed in you all. Anyway, so this is the kind of just dark underwater movement. Definitely a section where you pretty much just have to memorize where you're going and what you're doing. But it's not too bad. Some peaceful swimming. No eel to be worried about. No problems. Ah! Oh god, the eel's back. This is my favorite music in the game, by the way. So there are 6 bites. I guess every game needs a mashing section. This is GRIS's. Turtle, 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 saves the day again. Thank you, turtle, for coming to ESA. Now get those donos in so that the summer event can happen, 'cause I want to go to Sweden, so yeah. So that's the turtle. You don't actually see the first turtle, or the turtle the first time in this category because we go out of bounds and skip it. But if we were playing no out of bounds, or if we were playing this game casually, there would be an entire underwater section that we would have gone through, and in that underwater section, we would have collected 4 stars, and we would have used those 4 stars to activate the turtle, and the turtle would have like led the way for us into the hand statue, and it would have been a lot of fun, and we would have met Turtle. And it's really sad that we don't get to meet Turtle the first time, and like you just have this random sequence break of Turtle exploding the eel's head out of nowhere, and you're like, what's the turtle? But yeah, that's what the turtle is. So, you know, Turtle's awesome. Turtle saves the day once again. And we're now on our last backtrack here to the hub. Notice again, colors, A lot of yellows here. That's for our acceptance as we are transitioning into our final emotion. We get to intersperse some water movement. So we have a YOLO jump coming up here. Ooh, right there. Saves 1 second, but loses 15 if you miss that jump, if your angle's off on it. So that's why we call it the YOLO. It first happened to me by accident, and I nearly pooped myself in Fright. True story. Accidental speed strats. So if you do a 180 on while you're in the water right after doing a dive, you refresh your dive, which thankfully is not useful for swimming in a straight line, but it is useful if you're changing direction, like right there. So, and again, in acceptance, we'll use that again. Since water is the fastest mode of travel now, any opportunity that we have to drop into water and then dive out of it, we're going to use. Which you're going to see like 3 or 4 times in acceptance. So, you guys remember the pot that I broke like 40 minutes ago? We are finally going to use it. Right here. Boom. Don't have to break the pot, because we already broke it. So once again, long staircase. Climb our way up here. But again, we have some new mechanics that are being introduced. Where is our next staircase, you might ask? Oh, hey. It is hidden, and we need the light of acceptance in order to show us the way. You might also be wondering why I double jump upstairs. We've timed it out, and single jumping versus double jumping is identical. And to me, it's just easier to double jump upstairs than to have to properly time the single jumps. It's just less work. We also get introduced to yellow birds here. They are going to be some timed birds, but as speedrunners, the game being very generous and forgiving, the timers are way more than we actually need. You might be wondering like what's over on that right side, or you might have seen some weird objects throughout the game that we passed. Those are called mementos. There are 28 of them in the game. That's kind of like the optional side stuff, but if you collect all 28 mementos, it unlocks a bonus cutscene at the end. That's some extra lore. And that's basically like our 100% category for GRIS is all mementos. You can also momentum jump out of water with a dive. So you dive out and then do a jump, and it preserves the speed from the dive and allows you to just kind of jump straight over those platforms. This puzzle, well, it's not really a puzzle, but this sequence I don't particularly like. It's weird to me that you break the pot to lose the firefly and then immediately just go back on a backtrack to grab another one. It's one of the few places in the game that feels like kind of amateur design. So this is, again, we've reached our platform where we're going to have to collect our 2 stars for the final time. And different than everywhere else in the game, we are actually going to cover these same areas both before and after we grab our stars. So that's pretty cool, because our power-up will change how we're able to progress. So I use the D-pad for playing GRIS on my controller, except when I'm underwater, in which case I switch to using my analog stick. And we also go upside down. This is my favorite sequence in the game right here. It is super satisfying when you hit it all properly. Just like that. That was pretty close to perfect. And darn does it feel good.
Let me know whenever you have a moment.
Yeah, go ahead. This section is just platforming.
So, your thing a bit earlier where you said you're disappointed in chat apparently sparked some donations.
Hey! Good job,
So
chat.
we have a few here for you. Starting out by $15.15 from Anonymous, saying, "Man, the GRIS has no gameplay crowd got really quiet." We also got $5 here from Recult, saying, "Don't be disappointed. Oh, granddaddy of the goose kind."
Thanks, Recult.
And then finally we have $13 here from Strive the Historian, saying, "I couldn't not donate for Tasselfoot's legendary voice. Turtle, save the day!" Thank you very much for the donations, guys.
Yes, thank
Keep
you
them
guys.
coming. Yeah, we just surpassed $11,200 with those donations. You guys reckon we can get past 12,000 at the end of the marathon, guys? You think we can do it?
I think you guys can do it. So yeah, so this whole section is really just some platforming. Nothing super exciting went on. We just jumped good. So there is going to be a little movement tech right here. Again, game is forgiving, so it triggers that light before crossing over, so we never actually have to cross over. Saves a little bit of time. And we've collected our 2 stars. We are going to get our final power-up of the game. And so throughout this game, you know, there's no text, there's no dialogue. Basically, GRIS has had no voice. She's lost her voice throughout this game. And this final power-up is GRIS finding her voice again. And GRIS has just an absolutely lovely voice. So much so that when she sings, she brings things to life. So I mentioned we go back through the areas that we already just went through, but we're going to go in different routes now that we have the ability to sing. So we're going up. Oh, almost fell off that platform. So we brought the flowers to life, and now we brought this little spider creature to life. We're gonna do a little dance. It's our happy dance. Oh, don't fall off the platform though. I'm gonna lean in here, so apologies on the weird camera that's gonna result. But the hardest trick in the game is coming up, and I need to look at the pixels like as close as I can. And I'm probably, okay, I fell off the edge of the platform. I'm probably still not going to get the trick. It's just really, really hard. But basically, we're gonna go to themed rooms on both sides. And on this right side is what we call the bug room. And the bug room has 2 skips. Casually doing the bug room is what we refer to as doing it in 2 cycles. And doing 1 cycle saves 10 seconds. It's relatively easy. And then there is a no cycle, which saves an additional 22 seconds and is incredibly difficult. It's 2 consecutive frame perfect inputs, or pixel perfect inputs. Starting off with a coyote jump. So that was 1 cycle. That's pretty easy. Nope. Nope. I think the second jump was actually a frame late. The first jump felt decent. So that trick is just insanely hard, and it's right at the end of the run. And of course, we didn't make it back in time, so we lost an extra cycle on top of it. But I know we're super ahead on the marathon, and we're also really ahead on our estimate here. So I'm going to try it a couple more times and see if we can't pull off a no cycle for you guys. Even though it's not like no cycle anymore. I think we just got it. Hey, there we go. Only took 2 tries. But that trick is super hard. I'm glad it only took 2 tries. I've done some marathon runs where I've tried it like 8 times and not gotten it, and I just feel really bad when that happens. So yeah, that was no cycle. It's a frame perfect coyote jump followed by a frame perfect jump after the transition, after GRIS flips over. The second jump is like pretty is honestly, it doesn't feel frame perfect. It's not terribly hard, but the first jump is really tricky, and there's no real setup for it. You just kind of have to hope that you hit the right pixel. So we have 2 more stars that we need to collect here, and this is a relatively new route change that I found that saves like 1.5 seconds or a second. So we're gonna need to open those flowers later, and it just turns out that using the speed of the flowers and then using them twice instead of just the one time that we need to use them later, it loses 0.5 seconds now, but it saves like 1.5 seconds later. So overall, it winds up being 1 second faster. I bonked. All right, so we activate that flower there, which fills the water basin here. This was an area we came through before with no water, and we're gonna get a free insta-heavy off this ledge. It's pretty easy to stop right on the edge and do your singing, and and that happens like it just did, then you just get a free insta-heavy by holding left and your heavy button. So this is the same area that we were covering before, but now it's timed. And so this is like the exact same stuff when the reading of donations was going on. It's the exact same movement, but slight worry and concern of timing. Not really, but we're gonna go left instead of right. Before we had the power up, we went to the right there. But we're coming to Flower Room. And so Bug Room has no cycle, which is super, super hard. Flower Room also has a major skip where we don't need to flip over and go to the top side either. But this is as close to free as you're gonna get. There we go. All you have to do is mash to jump cancel, and it works. And we skipped having to light up all of those flowers on the top side. If only the Bug Room skip was that easy. So we've collected our final star. We have all of the ones we need. I really should count how many stars there are in the game. I feel like that would be a good piece of information to know. I don't know exactly how many stars. Somewhere around, oh, we'll say 30, give or take. We'll estimate it's around 30. And now we have to bring them back to the central area again. And however, this is the only time in the game where it's not the hub, because we've kind of ascended beyond the hub. We have moved on, and we're trying to, like, I don't know, get close to heaven or something like that, to where we're basically, like, in line with the hub. See here, we're using the flowers again that we sung to earlier. But instead of the hub, which is, like, down below, we are going to continue going up. So we've sung all of these trees to life to give us the pathway to travel. It's really awkward to climb these trees. Like, it feels like there should be a faster way to do it, but no one has found one. So, and we can't come here earlier because you need all 6 of your stars to create your star bridge. We don't actually need to be on the platform. Our sing will register from here. So, game over? Not really. There is still some stuff that needs to be done. We have gone through our 5 emotions of grief, but our journey is not complete yet. The final time, depositing our stars, and we have made our ultimate sky bridge. We're going to try to go up there. But we can't. And you may be asking, you may be wondering, what is the meaning of the bird? What is the meaning of the eel? For they are here once again. Oh snap. They were us all along. Our doubts, our fears, our worries, our concerns. Our anger, our depression. They are toiling their ugly head one last time. And notice, if you remember to the very beginning, that sequence of GRIS spinning, that is the same as in the opening cutscene of the game. GRIS falling and spinning. So we have fallen to the darkest depths, and we have to slowly swim our way back out. There are pieces of the statue that we had put painstakingly and lovingly back together that is broken. It has fallen apart. Our world has shattered around us. Like the cliche of the night is darkest just before the dawn. Goodbye, Mom. I'm gonna climb the broken pieces. back into the broken hand, and we'll sing everything back together again. I'm gonna shut up for the time being and let you guys just appreciate this final cutscene. We're able to say goodbye. We're able to move on. We're able to continue the next part of our journey. And time is going to come up in like 45 seconds after we climb the stairs here, or the Star Bridge. I'm coming up in like 3, 2, 1, time. So that's been GRIS, guys. I hope everybody enjoyed. Sorry if I made you cry, or if the game made you cry. I really hope you enjoyed. If you're looking for a chill speedrun, something different than what you normally do, I definitely recommend the game. It's really easy to learn, really easy to get into, super consistent. If you like the stuff that I do, please feel free to give me a follow at twitch.tv/Tasselfoot. And thank you so much, guys, for the donations, for a great cause. It's such a beautiful game, and I'm glad that those of you who haven't seen it before were given this opportunity. So thank you, ESA, for allowing me to show off this game that isn't the most prototypical speedrunning type game, but is a beautiful game and has still a number of speed tricks found within it. That's pretty much all I got. Enjoy the rest of the marathon. Enjoy Messenger and Celeste and Final Fantasy VII Remake. Thank you so much for having me for both GRIS and for Goose Game.
Well, thank you a lot, Tasselfoot. That was a very nice run and some good commentary. I would like to quickly inform everybody that my host shift is also done with this. I've been Zonaris. After me taking over is my good friend Robo Sparkle. And before I leave, I just want to quickly remind everybody that not just by donating, but also by subscribing, you can support ESA and everything they do. Gift subbing, of course, also included. And of course, if you still have your free Twitch Prime subscription somewhere laying around, please feel free to drop it here. We would greatly appreciate it. And if you have gotten a gift sub throughout this marathon at some point, please consider converting it over to just a normal, regular tier 1 sub. And yeah, that's it from us, I suppose. Please stay tuned. Up next is The Messenger by 2C+, which is a great game. So stay tuned. We're gonna jump in a quick intermission, and when we're back, Messenger is on. So please get hype.